But that got me thinking about how do NFTs fit in? And I'm going to go back and tell you a story because I think it's really interesting, something you really need to understand about NFTs. So back in 2012-13, I was living in Spain and I'd gone through the European crisis after the financial crisis. And the euro was still pretty highly valued, but had topped out. It was kind of the 140-ish, something around that level. And I had a structural view that the dollar was going to be stronger and the euro weaker because of the debt issues in the Eurozone. And so I took a very brave, ridiculous move, much like I did in crypto several years later, is I switched 100% of all of my liquid net worth into dollars. And I was living in Spain. I was earning in euros. So then I actually changed the billing for Global Macro Investor into dollars. So I changed my base currency. I then thought, okay, what do I do with these dollars? So I bought some bonds and I then bought some assets. So I'd done the same with Ethereum, I realized. So I wanted to invest in the Ethereum economy. So I bought Ethereum. I bought some bonds. I get some staking yields. As you know, I'm not really big into the DeFi space overall, but staking yields, I don't mind some of that. And then I started allocating my ETH to NFTs. In the US side of the equation, when I did that trade originally, what I did was bought property. So I bought property in the Cayman Islands. I built that house in Little Cayman, and that was a way of parking dollars in a productive asset and stopping me trading them, because you know what it's like, you get spooked out by markets. And that worked out pretty well. You know, my guess is the value of the property, I don't know what it's gone up, call it 50%, and the dollar went up about 30% against the euro. So overall, you kind of get the leverage of the trade without leverage. Now, NFTs are the same. So I think the current type of NFTs, which is kind of scarce assets like art and some of the community stuff like punks and apes and stuff, these act like the art market traditionally, where people invest because it's all based in dollars. So they park dollars into art. It's a way of keeping hold of dollars and keeping out of bank accounts, that kind of stuff. In this situation, NFTs, it's a way of owning property in the ETH economy. So I've got property or art, whatever you want to think about it, but a property in that sense. And that property is priced in ETH. Now, this is the remarkable thing about Ethereum, is actually the internet, the Web3 internet, uses ETH as its base currency. Not Bitcoin, it's ETH. ETH is what they price mainly NFTs in. Obviously, there's some in Solana, there's some in Tezos and everything else, but ETH is the main bulk of it. So these things are priced in ETH, so they can move around, but the main driver of it is the actual value of ETH itself. Because if something's worth 1 ETH and ETH's at $1,500, and they're still at 1 ETH, and ETH's at $3,000, you've doubled your money. And you haven't got rid of your ETH bet. Okay, this is really interesting. So I started allocating, I don't know, maybe 10% of my ETH or so into premium NFTs. And some of those are communities, some of those are art projects. Because I saw that stuff like punks, when you look at the price of CryptoPunks and Bored Apes, is they've remained incredibly stable in ETH terms. Yes, they had a blow off top, and then they came back, and they've traded at about 65 ETH forever. And that's interesting to me, because they didn't fall much further. They had a sharp spike in June in the big crypto collapse, but other than that, they just rallied back and stayed at 65 ETH. So whatever ETH does, they're just mirroring it. Okay, so I can take my ETH and put it into a JPEG, an NFT. But why? Well, because much like property, high-end property, and think of a punk as a high-end property in London or New York or Hong Kong, or wherever it is when the economy starts booming and people have more money, they tend to buy expensive high-end property, and it tends to outperform the rest of the market. And I think the same thing will happen in the ETH economy. So as the ETH economy recovers, and it will do over time, and the ETH price goes up and economic activity in the Ethereum economy goes up, some of that excess returns that people make get recycled into assets. And the ETH assets are things like CryptoPunks or Fidenzas or Beeple or whatever it may be, Squiggles, or some of this great artwork.